July 1945. The war is over, but the scars remain. Hitler's capital, once the proud center of the Nazi Empire, now lies in ruins. Streets are broken, buildings collapsed, and silence echoes where once there had been shouts of victory parades. For weeks, the Soviet Union has controlled the city. It was the Red Army that broke the Nazi defenses and stormed into Berlin, capturing Hitler's. The war is over, but the scars remain. Hitler's capital, once the proud center of the Nazi Empire, now lies in ruins. Streets are broken, buildings collapsed, and silence echoes where once there had been shouts of victory parades. For weeks, the Soviet Union has controlled the city. It was the Red Army that broke the Nazi defenses and stormed into Berlin, capturing Hitler's Reich and ending the war in Europe. Now, 2 months later, the Americans and British are finally allowed to enter their sectors. Among them is a camera crew led by Hollywood director George Stevens. At the Brandenburg Gate, his men film a city destroyed. The once famous Hotel Adolf is a burned-out shell. Unter den Linden, once Berlin's proud boulevard, is nothing but rubble. Berliners struggle to survive. Bicycles are rare treasures, rubble women clear the ruins with their bare hands, and food is scarce. Refugees from the east wander with nothing but a few belongings. Daily life is reduced to searching for water, shelter, and scraps of food. In the words of one American journalist, Berlin is not a city anymore, it is a corpse. But far away in Moscow, a very different scene unfolds. June 24th, 1945. Before the walls of the Kremlin, Joseph Stalin stands at the height of his power. The Red Army, bloodied but victorious, parades through Red Square. Soldiers march in perfect formation, carrying the banners of the defeated Nazi army, which they throw onto the ground before the Soviet leader. The symbolism is unmistakable. Stalin is the conqueror of Hitler. For 4 years, the Soviet Union had borne the brunt of the war. 27 million of its people had perished. Entire cities had been burned to the ground. Yet now, the Soviet Union stands tall, celebrated as the power that crushed fascism. Stalin, once underestimated, is now the master not only of his people, but of half of Europe. In Berlin, the devastation is overwhelming. 50,000 tons of explosives had fallen on the city. Of its buildings, nearly 50,000 are completely destroyed. In the words of one British marshal, Berlin should remain a monument to militarism and to the horrors of Nazism, never rebuilt. Others, like American journalists, describe it as a modern Babylon brought to ashes, and yet, life stubbornly pushes forward. 2.5 million Berliners remain, most of them women and children. They clean, rebuild, and search for a future. Captain Carter, one of the cameramen of Special Film Project 186, films their efforts. Women stacking bricks, children playing in ruins, families improvising shelter from collapsed buildings. Every stone salvaged is a step towards survival. But amid the suffering, the shadow of Stalin looms large. His face appears on posters across the city, his words printed on walls, messages of liberation, equality, and unity. Yet Berliners who had experienced the first weeks of Soviet occupation knew another truth: looting, rapes, and violence at the hands of Soviet soldiers. Stalin's propaganda spoke of peace, but his Red Army left behind scars that would never be forgotten. In July 1945, Berlin also becomes the stage for a new chapter. Leaders of the victorious Allies, Stalin, Truman, and Churchill, are gathering just outside the city, in Potsdam. The world holds its breath. What will happen to Germany? Will the country be destroyed or rebuilt? Will Europe be united or divided? Stalin arrives confident. He knows his Red Army controls Eastern Europe. from Poland to Romania, from Hungary to the Balkans. Wherever the Soviet flag was planted, communist governments are beginning to emerge. Truman, the new American president, comes determined not to allow Stalin unchecked dominance. Churchill, still British Prime Minister, hopes to balance the scales. Inside Sicilianhof Palace, the Potsdam Conference begins. Reparations, borders, the fate of Germany, all are debated. Stalin speaks calmly, presenting himself as the reasonable statesman. Yet he hides one of his greatest secrets, Hitler's body, discovered by Soviet forces, already confirmed dead by his dentists. Stalin does not reveal the truth. Instead, he spreads rumors that Hitler might have escaped to Spain or Argentina. Deception is part of his game. As the Allies talk, the people of Berlin continue their daily struggle. Ration cards determine survival. Heavy workers, miners, and factory laborers get the most food. Rubble women and children get less. Those without work are left with what Berliners call the hunger card. Black markets spring up around the Brandenburg Gate, where desperate families trade their last possessions for bread. George Stevens, with his Hollywood-trained eye, films the ruins of Hitler's Reich Chancellery. Here, Goebbels and his wife committed suicide. Here, the last loyalists burned Hitler's body. Now, only rubble remains. Stevens captures everything: the vulgar graffiti of Red Army soldiers, the burned-out walls, the shattered symbol of the Nazi Empire. At the same time, Berlin witnesses parades of the victors. The British desert rats march through the city, while Soviet soldiers show their power on the other side of the sector borders. At first, it looks like unity, but Berliners quickly sense the truth. Cracks are appearing in the Allied alliance. The war is over, but another struggle is beginning: the Cold War. Stalin, more than anyone, understands this. For him, Berlin is not just the ruins of Nazism. It is the first battlefield of the New World Order. His words, his propaganda, his soldiers, all remind the world that the Soviet Union is no longer just a partner in victory. It is now a superpower, one that demands respect, fear, and obedience. And so, by the summer of 1945, Berlin has become the symbol of two realities: the ruins of a defeated empire and the stage for a new conflict. Stalin stands triumphant, celebrated as the man who destroyed Hitler, but also feared as the dictator who will dominate Eastern Europe for decades to come. The war is over, but history has only entered a darker, colder chapter. Amid the rubble, small acts of defiance and hope emerge. A baker opens a makeshift stall in a shattered street, offering bread to those who can pay with what little they have. Children gather in courtyards, inventing games among the ruins, their laughter a fragile shield against despair. Women organize community kitchens, turning the debris of bombed-out buildings into shelters and gathering places. Each day is a struggle, yet life asserts itself. Fires are lit in the evenings to ward off the chill, and stories are shared among neighbors of lost relatives, fallen soldiers, and dreams of a future far from the devastation. Berlin is no longer a city merely of walls and streets. It has become a testament to human resilience, a place where memory, survival, and the shadow of power collide. The tension between hope and fear hangs over every corner. Soviet patrols march through neighborhoods, their presence a constant reminder of conquest, while whispers of Allied strategies reach the ears of civilians who can only guess what the next months will bring. Each brick lifted from the rubble, each meal shared, and each whispered word of courage becomes a quiet rebellion against the darkness enveloping the city. In this fragile balance, Berliners continue to navigate the aftermath of total war, caught between the end of one era and the uncertain dawn of another. The city, though scarred and broken, is alive in its people's determination to endure and perhaps, one day, to rebuild.